There's been some breaking news over the last day that came out about the possibility of Oscar Piastri leaving the McLaren racing team. Now, this is not necessarily something that people would have maybe expected, or they may have expected a few months ago, but to come out now is oddly strange. So why is he leaving now? Let's sketch it out. Now, Oscar has obviously been a part of the team since before 2024, where the papaya rules were actually decided to be introduced. It was around 2024 where the papaya rules were introduced at Monza, which is ironic, where Lando was told that he could race Oscar freely as long as it was safe, it didn't intrude onto the team, just stuff like that. So when the car started to get more competitive, obviously Oscar and Lando are going to be competing against each other. Kind of sort of similar to the Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg situation back fucking ages ago. Now, we're obviously aware this didn't end well, so surely history is not going to repeat itself again. Well, in the 2025 season, Oscar Piastri for the majority of the first half of the season was primarily dominant. He showed grit, he showed passion, and he showed that he could be a better driver than Lando in the current season. Meanwhile, Lando was still stuck behind trying to figure out where the pace was missing. So coming into September 2025, when Oscar Piastri was dominant in the championship by this point and Lando was trailing, the McLarens decided that they wanted to follow the papaya rules of fair racing, even though it was just Lando getting a poor stop. So in Monza, the order was given that Piastri was to either give up the position to Lando, or there would be consequences, or they would just remember that, which inherently isn't fair because a late pit stop or a poor pit stop is still racing. The driver has a say on what happens, right? And when it comes to a poor pit stop, that's not inherently the fault of Oscar. That's not how it's unfair. Fair racing should be between the two drivers. If they're being fair with each other, that's being fair. But the second you start throwing spanners in the work, it starts to make things a little unfair. So obviously coming out of this race, Oscar was fuming and obviously showed his distaste towards the team. He felt it was unfair and his season could and was inherently affected as a result of it.
What opportunities were missed, or were any missed, or are you pretty happy overall? Kind of sum it up for us.
I mean, I don't know if happy is the word, but not overly disappointed.
But McLaren are only going to get worse from here because, well, why wouldn't they? So in October of 2025, it was decided that during Singapore, fair racing was back. So when it came to the turn one of the race, Lando decided to dive in and accidentally makes contact with Oscar. And Oscar, obviously being upset with this, communicates on the radio that he feels that we should switch the positions back. He unfairly overtook me. If you're not aware as well, if you make contact with someone else's car, it's going to have a negative effect on not only their pace, but also their car's reliability. But for some reason, the McLarens decided that it was fair. Apparently he just dove in and accidents happen, which is kind of contradictory of what happened in Monza, where Oscar was told to give the position back for an unfair pit stop. So as a result of these incidents, Piastri ended up losing the championship in 2025, which could have been his only chance, being fair to him, of actually getting a championship, all because Lando Norris was favored by McLaren, which of course he is going to be. He's been with the team longer, he's been more loyal, and Zach Brown likes feeding him apparently, right? And as a result of this, Piastri loses by 13 points. And not only that did he not just finish P2, he ended up finishing P3 as he got overtaken by Max Verstappen. So basically in 2025 to 2026, McLaren had to do something and they decided to kill the papaya rules. So Piastri made sure in his contracts that he had a good clause to leave. And we kind of all knew that this clause was put in. We were very aware of it, but not everyone thought that it would have actually been activated coming into this season. Most people expected the McLaren to be not as dominant as they're using the Mercedes power units, so they're obviously going to be a little behind in development, but the car is definitely not as competitive as it needs to be. Now, sure, Lando won a sprint race this season, so the car has a little bit of pace, but they still don't know how to get it out fully. Not only that, but Lando's actually been performing better this year, I would say, than Oscar, even without the reliability problems of his car. So Oscar this season is definitely struggling with the modifications to the rules that came in, meaning that the car overall is going to struggle a lot more with his driving style, meaning the 2025 season could have been the only year that Piastri actually managed to get a championship. So in May, Oscar Piastri hit his exit clause, or somewhere between May and June, I think it was somewhere around that. And Oscar Piastri's contract does last till 2028 on paper, but the exit clause does allow him to leave, sharing the exact same exit clause as Max Verstappen does, but his being a little more, strict, of course. But with Max having conversations about possibly leaving Red Bull, this would be the perfect time for Oscar to jump ship there. And why? Why would it make sense? Well, first of all, you got to remember who's running Oscar Piastri's campaign and everything about him, right? Because if you realize it, Oscar Piastri's management is actually being run by former F1 driver for Red Bull, Mark Webber, who had an incredible run at Red Bull. So obviously he's going to have his bias about where obviously Oscar should be going, especially now with Helmut and Christian Horner having departed from the team. He would have more reliability in terms of his position, and he's less likely to get dropped, and Hajar is more likely to be. I also don't think Hajar would be the one to be replaced, because if you remember earlier, we talked about Max Verstappen's exit clause. Well, Max Verstappen has also not been having a great season, and he has stated by his management team and Jos Verstappen, his father, that Max Verstappen is not designed to be finishing in third. So with speculation that Max would have conversations with McLaren and has had those conversations with his management, it is very possible that we could see Oscar leaving to Red Bull and Max leaving to McLaren. So is this likely going to happen? Well, Oscar has been in talks with McLaren about possibly leaving the team at the end of 2026. We had a bunch of different news articles come out yesterday saying that there was massive news coming out. Will Buxton posted that it was going to be the Hamilton to Ferrari. Him to then just fucking post an IndyCar post about it, which inherently is big on its own. But outside of that, we got another Twitter post claiming from a Brazilian news outlet, Oscar Piastri had informed McLaren that he would be leaving at the end of the 2026 season. So there's the possibility. Oscar Piastri and Max Verstappen switching teams at the end of the 2026 season. So this could be inherently one of the greatest fiascos to come in 2027 and could make one of the most interesting developments of F1 in a long time. But hey, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe. I'm Irish, and I'll see you guys in the next video.